The first sound was metal crushing gravel. Eli turned his bike so fast the back wheel skidded. Dust kicked up into his sneakers. Across the park, a yellow bulldozer was nosing its way between the rusted monkey bars and the chipped red slide. Two men in hard hats stood nearby, holding rolled-up blueprints and a can of Red Bull. One of them pointed at the tire swing, then laughed. On the far end of the grass, a single voice cut through the stillness. "Not today, you don't," Eli groaned. Of course, his grandmother stood in the middle of the playground, both hands on her hips, like she was channeling a retired superhero. Her white hair whipped in the wind, and the hem of her protest T-shirt, hand-painted, crooked letters spelling out, "Our kids, our future," flapped like a battle flag. "She's doing it again," Eli muttered under his breath. He yanked his hoodie up over his head and pedaled toward the scene, hoping no one from school was around to witness the embarrassment. The bulldozer's engine coughed and quieted as he reached the fence. His grandmother, Lillian Knox, was pointing a knobby finger at the two workers. "You can call City Hall, but I've already filed an injunction, and I've got signatures. 83, not counting pets." "Ma'am," one of the men said gently, "we're just doing our job. We got orders." "And I've got memories," Lillian snapped. "This playground's not coming down. Not without a fight." Eli winced. People were starting to gather, moms with strollers, kids from the corner ice cream stand, old Mr. Burney from the antique store. A woman took out her phone and started filming. "Graham," Eli hissed as he rolled his bike closer, "can we go now, please?" She turned. Her expression softened when she saw him, but only for a second. "You should be proud," she said under her breath. "This is where your uncle scraped his knees 100 times, where your mother kissed him on the head after every fall." Eli looked away. He didn't like when she brought up Uncle Jamie, the uncle he'd never met, the one everyone whispered about like a storybook hero, the one who died before Eli was born. Lillian took a deep breath, then turned back to the workers. "You tell your boss the old woman says no." Without another word, she planted herself on the faded merry-go-round, arms crossed. The men exchanged a glance. One shrugged. "Guess we're done for today." The crowd clapped. Lillian didn't smile, not yet. Eli saw the way her hand shook slightly as she pushed herself up and walked toward him. "I'll walk the bike," she said, not asking. They headed home in silence. Their house sat 3 blocks away, sagging with charm and age. Eli carried his bike up the porch steps while Lillian checked the mailbox. Inside, the house smelled like peppermint tea and liniment cream. 1,000 photos covered the living room wall, black and white, color, glossy Polaroids. At the center was one Eli always avoided, a sunlit picture of a teenage boy in a Little League jersey, laughing with Lillian on that same playground. She caught him staring. "You never ask about him," she said quietly. Eli sat on the armrest of the couch, picking at a thread on his jeans. "I didn't know him." "That doesn't mean he's not yours, too." Silence again. Outside, the wind blew harder. A flyer came tumbling down the sidewalk, smacking into the front steps. Lillian opened the door, bent slowly, and picked it up. Her lips tightened. Eli leaned over to read. "Community Redevelopment Initiative. Playground. Removal scheduled July 15th. Open field to replace current structure pending zoning approval." He glanced up. "That's next week." Her eyes were bright, but her voice was steady. Then we'd better get started, don't you think? Eli didn't know what was worse. The fact that his grandmother made him carry a bag of markers through downtown in 90-degree heat, or that she kept calling every child they passed a young soldier of justice. "Graham, please," he whispered, mortified, as she handed a stack of homemade flyers to two confused toddlers eating snow cones. Lillian ignored him. She was in mission mode, straw hat cocked to one side, clipboard under one arm, lips pursed in the way Eli had learned to fear. They passed the barber shop, the used bookstore, and the empty lot where the library used to be. On every pole and corkboard, she pinned a bright yellow flyer. "Save our playground! Community meeting Saturday at noon. Bring ideas. Bring hope. Bring your voice." They had made 47 copies at the pharmacy, using the machine that groaned and left purple streaks down the middle of every page. "Why does it matter so much?" Eli finally asked, tossing a pebble as they walked. "It's just a playground. There's a new one near the mall." Lillian stopped. They stood under the awning of the shuttered hardware store. Her voice was quiet, but heavy. "I built that playground, Eli, with your grandfather and a few others. We did it after Jamie passed. We had nothing but lumber scraps, leftover paint, and grief. That old slide, it came from a junkyard. That seesaw, Jamie's scout troop made it." Eli blinked. "Wait, you built it? Yourself?" She nodded. "We didn't have much money back then, but we had neighbors who showed up. That place wasn't just for kids. It was our way of saying life goes on." He looked down at the flyer in his hand. The corners curled in the heat. Before he could answer, a voice rang out across the street. "Lillian, you're not dragging the boy into your protest nonsense, are you?" It was Mr. Kyle Denham, city councilman, real estate broker, and all-around suit and smirk. He leaned against his silver sedan, sunglasses on, Bluetooth in his ear. "Evening, Kyle," Lillian called, not breaking stride. "Still using the same hair dye, I see." Kyle chuckled. "Just saying some of us want progress. Your nostalgia playground's a safety hazard. The insurance alone is cheaper than a child growing up with nowhere to feel safe," Lillian shot back. He raised both hands. "I don't make the rules, but if you've got some emotional blackmail planned for the Saturday meeting, I suggest you come prepared." Then, smiling like a man who already had the vote count in his pocket, Kyle slid into his car and drove off. Eli watched the taillights disappear. "I hate him." Lillian looked at him, one eyebrow raised. "Good. Now channel that into something useful." Back at home, the dining table became a war room. Lillian unrolled blueprints of the original playground, stained and soft at the folds. Eli opened his laptop. His friend Zoe from school came over with a camera, and two of the neighbor kids, Marcus and Trinity, started cutting poster board in the shape of hearts and fists. By sunset, the living room was a mess of glitter, markers, and crumpled tape. A banner stretched across the fireplace read, "They want to flatten it. We want to fix it." Zoe clicked through photos of the playground from the past few years, birthday parties, a snowman family on the slide, one picture of a teenager sitting alone on the swing with earbuds in, head bowed. "I didn't realize how many people still used it," Eli murmured. "That's the thing," Zoe said. "It matters when it's gone." Lillian brought out lemonade in mismatched glasses. She handed Eli a folder, old newspaper clippings, yellow with time, headlines like Local boy remembered in park dedication and small town builds big dreams. She pointed to one photo of a young girl and a small boy playing in the dirt. That's your mom and Jamie, right there where the sandbox used to be. Eli stared. The boy had wild curls like his. The woman, his mom, was laughing, her hand on the boy's back. He swallowed hard. "We have 6 days," Lillian said. 6 days to remind this town that some things don't need replacing. They need remembering. Outside, the streetlights flickered on, casting long shadows across the porch. Inside, a quiet resolve settled in, and in Eli's chest, something began to change. It started with a smell, acrid, sour smoke curling in through Eli's half-open window just after midnight. He sat bolt upright in bed, his room lit in eerie flickers of orange. He stumbled to the window. From the hilltop view, he could see the park and the fence on the far side glowing. Fire. He grabbed his hoodie and tore down the stairs. "Graham!" he yelled, but Lillian was already at the door, bare feet in her slippers, a garden hose in one hand and a flashlight in the other. The screen door banged as she stepped into the night. They ran. The fire hadn't touched the playground itself, not yet, but the back fence, the old wooden one that framed the sandbox corner, was fully engulfed. Flames licked upward, crackling against the night sky, and the air reeked of burning plastic. A scorched poster, "Bring Your Voice," floated up, then dissolved. Lillian didn't hesitate. She sprayed the flames directly, the weak hose sputtering under the pressure. Eli grabbed a second one from the neighbor's yard and joined her. Within minutes, other porch lights blinked on. Neighbors came barefoot and groggy with buckets, towels, extinguishers. Zoe arrived with her dad. Trinity and Marcus appeared wide-eyed, carrying pitchers of water. Someone called the fire department, but by the time the red truck rolled up, the worst of it was already smoke and ash. Eli sat on the curb, panting, shirt soaked through. Lillian crouched beside him, her hand firm on his shoulder. A firefighter walked over. "Deliberate," he said. "Accelerant on the fence posts. Likely kids, but we'll check for prints." "Someone tried to burn it down," Eli said, his voice hollow. "No," Lillian replied quietly. "Someone tried to scare us." By morning, photos of the fire were everywhere. The town Facebook page was flooded. Who would do this? This isn't what Fairview stands for. Makes me sick. That playground was my childhood. Kyle Denham made a statement by noon, all polished teeth and fake concern in front of the local news van. "We don't condone violence of any kind, but maybe this incident highlights how unsafe the old structure has become." Lillian, meanwhile, stood beside the charred fence, hammering in a new sign. "Hey, we still believe in play." Eli watched her from a distance, something tugging at his insides, the kind of ache you get when you realize someone you love has been fighting alone for too long. He pulled out his phone, opened the video app, then without planning it, he started recording. The smoke-stained slide behind him, the ruined posters, Lillian's hands, strong and weathered, holding a nail steady. "This was my uncle's playground," he said, his voice steady. "My grandma built it after he died. Not just for him, for everyone." He paused. "Somebody tried to burn it down last night. Maybe they thought that would end it. But they don't know her, and now they don't know us." He posted the video, added a caption. #earn the playground # Fairview fights back. By the end of the day, it had over 3,000 views. That night, Their kitchen table was full again. Zoe designed new flyers digital this time. Trinity's older brother offered to DJ at Saturday's gathering. Mrs. Kwan from the flower shop pledged free lemonade for every kid who showed up. Eli noticed how tired his grandmother looked. Her hands ached when she curled them. She moved slower up the stairs. But her eyes? Still fierce. Still ready. "We can't stop now," she said. "They're listening. They just don't know it yet." Eli nodded. "We'll make them hear." By Friday, the playground was buzzing. Not with bulldozers, but with brushes, rakes, and kids elbow-deep in paint. Someone had the idea to start a mural on the concrete wall near the monkey bars, and by noon, 20 little hands were smearing sky-blue strokes and sun-yellow dots across the old gray slab. Eli knelt beside Marcus, painting a rocket ship. Zoe was directing with a clipboard like she'd been born for it. Trinity had brought streamers. Even quiet Maya, who usually hid behind her mom at school pickup, was tracing flowers near the bottom, her cheeks streaked with color. And right in the center of the park, Lillian was digging. Eli jogged over, wiping his palms on his jeans. "What are you doing? You said no more heavy lifting." She leaned on the shovel, face flushed. "One more hole." Beside her lay a small oak sapling, its roots wrapped in burlap. A tag dangled from one branch, "In memory of Jamie Knox, 1983-1996. Eli stared at it, then crouched to help. "What made you choose a tree?" She sat back, resting. "Your uncle used to say he'd climb all the way to the moon if someone planted the right one. I always told him he'd have to plant it himself." She looked around at the kids, the color, the laughter returning to a place that had nearly been erased. "I think he did," she whispered. Eli swallowed the lump in his throat and dug faster. By the time the sun began to dip behind the steeple of First Baptist, the sapling stood straight in the ground. Around its base, they placed river rocks, painted with words like hope, belonging, future, and Jamie. Then Zoe brought over a small wooden box and opened it to reveal a stack of index cards. "What's that?" Marcus asked. "A promise box," she said. "We each write what we promise to do if we save this place. Could be anything. Eli came up with it." Eli blinked. "I did? You said something yesterday about this place being built on what people did, not what they said." They all sat around the tree. One by one they scribbled promises to show up, to help paint, to tell one more person, to listen better, to not litter. Even little Maya wrote, "I will be brave." Lillian knelt last. Her hand trembled slightly as she wrote hers. She didn't read it aloud, but she kissed the card before placing it in the box. Later that evening, as dusk turned purple, Eli and Lillian sat on the front steps of their house. The day's noise had faded, leaving only the sound of crickets and the hum of faraway cars. Lillian was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "You know, I was afraid you wouldn't care." Eli glanced over. "I didn't, at first." She nodded. "I know. I just didn't understand how much you did." She smiled gently. "You don't have to carry all this yet, Eli, but I want you to know why it matters." He looked down the street, where the playground lights were still glowing, solar-powered, flickering like tiny stars. "I think I do now." She leaned against his shoulder. The porch light above them buzzed. Somewhere a dog barked, and down the block Someone had already tied balloons to the meeting tent for Saturday. Tomorrow would be the vote. Tomorrow, they'd find out if it had all been enough. The community center had never been this full. Rows of metal chairs screeched across the tiled floor as people shuffled in, sweating through dress shirts and tank tops in the stale summer air. Someone had brought lemonade in plastic jugs, and the sound of slurping straws mingled with murmurs and the occasional sneeze from a dusty corner. Eli sat near the front with Zoe, his foot tapping nervously. Lillian was 3 rows back, scribbling last-minute notes onto a napkin. She wore a blue blouse, ironed that morning, and the silver pin she always touched when she talked about Jamie. Her reading glasses kept sliding down her nose. At the front of the room stood a microphone. Behind it, the town council, 5 folding chairs, each occupied by a person trying to look neutral. And right in the middle, in a perfectly tailored gray suit, sat Kyle Denham, all confidence and cologne. He leaned into the mic. "Thank you all for coming. We appreciate your input, and we're here to—" "Save our playground!" shouted Trinity from the back, holding up a poster with glitter letters. Laughter rippled through the room. Kyle smiled thinly. "As I was saying, today's vote is about safety, progress, and what's best for the long-term future of Fairview." He listed budget numbers, liability clauses, quotes from engineers and contractors. He nodded toward a screen showing a rendering of a sleek green lawn where the playground currently stood. No color, no kids, no joy. Eli's stomach twisted. Then it was time for public comments. One by one, neighbors rose. Mrs. Kwan spoke first. "My flower shop is where they buy petals for their forts." Mr. Burney, from the antique store. "It's not just a playground. It's a memory bank." A teenager Eli barely knew stood to say she went there when she had no one else to talk to. Then came Lillian. She walked slowly to the microphone. No notes, just that silver pen and her voice. "My name is Lillian Knox. I've lived in Fairview since 1961. I built that playground with my neighbors after my son Jamie was killed in a bicycle accident 2 blocks from home." The room fell still. "He was 11, she said softly. "He loved outer space, sour candy, and climbing trees he wasn't supposed to. We didn't have much money back then, but we had grief, and we had hands, so we used them." She looked up. "I'm not against progress. I'm against forgetting. I'm against paving over stories just because the paint has faded." She took a breath. "You want to know what unsafe looks like? A town where children have nowhere to play, nowhere to gather, nowhere to remember." She paused, then added, "And maybe nowhere to forgive." Eli blinked. He wasn't sure what that last line meant, but the weight of it hit something deep. Lillian looked around the room, eyes steady. "I'm old. I know I am. But sometimes the loudest word is spoken by the quietest voice. And sometimes the most important thing to keep is the thing someone else is trying to throw away." She stepped back. No one moved. Then, slowly, people began to clap. It spread like a wave, hesitant, then building, thunderous. Kyle shifted in his seat. The council took a brief recess to deliberate. Eli paced outside, swatting at mosquitoes. When they returned, Kyle stood to read the results. "In a 3-2 vote," he said tightly, "the council has decided to table the demolition plans. The community will have 60 days to present a safety proposal and restoration budget." The room exploded. Kids jumped up and down. Lillian closed her eyes. Eli hugged her for the first time in a long time, not because someone told him to, but because he couldn't not. "You did it," he whispered. She opened her eyes. "No," she said, smiling faintly. "We did." The heat broke 2 days later, and with it came momentum. By mid-July, the playground had become a living, breathing organism. Every morning, kids showed up with rakes and rollers, teens patched wood planks, parents offered snacks, rides, even welding skills. Someone donated mulch, someone else fixed the swing chain. A retired contractor named Miguel redrew the safety map and presented it to the council with blue ribbon confidence. Eli started waking up early not because he had to, but because he wanted to. His hands were blistered, his sneakers ruined, and his heart full in ways he couldn't describe. Zoe posted updates daily. By week 3, their video had passed 20,000 views. But the best moment came quietly. They had just finished repainting the slide bright red again, like in the old photo. Lillian brought out a cooler and sat on the bench with a soft grunt. Eli handed her a lemonade and plopped down beside her, sweat dripping into his eyebrows. The tree they'd planted, Jamie's tree, had sprouted new leaves. "I've been thinking," she said slowly, "about what comes next." Eli raised an eyebrow. "Is this the part where you tell me you're moving to Florida to knit on the beach?" She snorted. "Hardly. I was thinking we should start a tradition. Every summer, a project, something that matters. Kids pick it, adults help, Fairview builds it together." Eli leaned back, arms behind his head. "Call it the Summer Project." "I was thinking," she said, "call it Jamie's Deal." He looked at her. She explained, "Jamie used to say, 'I'll make you a deal, Mom. If I build something cool, you have to let everyone use it.' I never said yes. Now, I guess I am." He smiled, then reached into his pocket and handed her a folded index card. She opened it. "I promise to never let the things that matter get paved over." Lillian's eyes welled. "Yours was the first one I put in the box," Eli said. She didn't answer, just leaned over and kissed the side of his head, gently, like a bookmark in a favorite chapter. On August 1st, they held the ribbon-cutting ceremony. The playground gleamed. Balloons danced in the wind. The mural sparkled with new names and stories. Each kid who helped had added their own handprint in paint. The mayor came. The council came. Even Kyle Denham came, but this time he brought popsicles for the kids and stayed quiet at the back. Lillian was asked to speak again. She refused. "I've said enough," she said, laughing. "Let the young ones do the talking now." So Eli took the mic. He wasn't planning to, but the words came easily this time. "This playground was built from pain," he said, "but it grew into something joyful. It got broken, forgotten, almost destroyed, but we earned it back, with hands and paint and voices, with remembering, with love." He paused, scanning the crowd. "I think that's what we're supposed to do. Not just play, but protect what we play on." Applause rolled in waves. Later that night, as stars poked out of the velvet sky, Eli sat on the tire swing. It creaked, familiar and gentle. Across the park, Zoe chased her little brother with a bubble wand. Trinity was drawing chalk flowers on the sidewalk. Maya stood under Jamie's tree, arms lifted as if she could feel it growing. Lillian walked by, holding a watering can. Their eyes met. No words were needed. They had saved it together. And more than that, They had earned it. Have you ever seen a place that meant everything to someone, but no one else seemed to care? Tell us in the comments. What's your childhood memory worth fighting for?